It is that time of year again, full of festive gift-giving occasions. For those of you who are here because you can't decide what to put on your history bounding Christmas list, or who have a history bounder in their life and don't know what to buy for them, worry not. I have you covered with this list of 10 gifts that are perfect for history bounding. Since we are crafting our own wardrobe, and a lot of our channel focuses on sewing, I've included a lot of sewing items for making your own wardrobe. But since not everybody can or wants to sew, or there are things we cannot readily make for ourselves, I've also tried to include a couple ready-made items here at different price points. And if you stay to the end, I have a couple of great options for gift cards for the more discerning or harder to buy for history bounder in your life. I've linked to some of my favorite items in the comments below. An important procedural note I think I'm required by law to tell you. I do have an Amazon affiliate account, so I make a small amount, a very, very small amount, from anything you purchase by clicking the link in the comment. The first item on our list is a bit of a stocking stuffer, but do not underestimate the power of good needle. And I mean good ones. Nothing that comes in a round plastic variety pack. Good needles are sharp and smooth and have a clean tip and eye. They glide in and out of fabric like a dream and are a joy to work with. This is a place where you probably want to spend a few more dollars than you'd think. Two brands I have had good luck with so far are Richard Hemming & Sons and Bon. The packs that I have here are betweens and sharps in sizes 8, 9, and 10. It's good to have a variety of these, but eventually through working with them, you'll probably find one you like and stick mostly to that. If you can't find those or other nicer brands for some reason, the Dritz hand sewing needles aren't terrible, but I really don't recommend them. It's also always good to have extra needles to hand. They break, they get lost, they get dull. Sometimes mid-project they vanish off the material plane, only to be found in a foot weeks later. You will need more. Even if you primarily sew by machine, most projects have some detail that needs to be done by hand, whether it's whip stitching or felling a seam. So these are always a good thing to have around. You will never be sorry you bought good needles, and you will never be sorry you have extras. Next on our list is scissors. Scissors galore. Scissors for fabric, not for paper. Don't ever use these for paper. This is another place where a little extra money goes a long way. Invest in a good quality pair of dressmaker shears. You want them to be sharp and generally have a little bit of body, but comfortable for you to handle. I like them to have a little bit of heft, but have a very comfortable handle that my hands fit inside easily. You will be using those a lot, so get something that's comfortable for you to use. For a long time, Gingers has been the go-to for this. I haven't loved mine, but lots of people do. I do have these Beartech scissors. They were a gift, but I'll link to the listing in the comment below, and I love them. They cut through fabric smoothly, they're about the right weight, and they're not so heavy they wear my hand out. I even loved the little pair of snips that came in the box with them. And you can never have enough snips. They're like needles. They'll disappear, you'll lose them, you'll find that they're dull or not where you thought you left them. So I recommend, as great little stocking stuffers or just here you go gifts, lots of little sewing snips. Put them in every bag you have, leave them all over the house. You will always be happy to have a pair to hand. Our third item on this list is stockings. So one of my goals in sewing is to avoid joyless sewing at all costs. And to me, making my own stockings right now sounds pretty joyless. I'm not saying never will I ever, but there are plenty of other things I'd rather be making. So I buy my stockings. I've specifically been buying Burnley and Trowbridge's stockings since they make historical reproductions I like. But if you're less concerned about historical reproduction or you just want cute socks, Sock Dreams is another place to go, and I've heard good things about their company. For our fourth item, I've included pattern paper. As you progress in sewing, you'll find that you want to be able to make alterations to patterns or trace them so that you can resize them. Having a long roll of paper that's wide enough that you can trace wide pattern pieces like skirt gores onto it, but also thin enough that you can trace through it is a lifesaver. And really, any long roll of thin paper will do. This is actually poster paper. You might also like a roll of traceable Swedish sewing paper. This you can trace onto and then sew with. It's used a lot in mock-ups and garment fitting. I love mine so much I haven't even taken it out of the package yet. I actually will be using this in a project that's coming up, but I haven't had a need for it until now. I didn't think I could make a history-bound and Christmas list and leave off books. You're getting a couple bonus items here because I decided that books was one item on the list instead of the 5 or 6 individual books I'm going to talk about. I also tried to pick books that are useful in early stages of garment making rather than the more advanced ones. So the first one I recommend is the Complete Photo Guide to Perfect Fitting. This has great pictures and is a really good guide for how to recognize and fix common fit issues you'll find in your garment. I have found it really useful in fitting my own things. The second is Authentic Victorian Dressmaking Technique. I love this one because it's a reproduction of a primary source, which means it's an original historical document that they've just reprinted and put in a new cover. But it's also super accessible. It is easy to use and understand and gives a great feel for what people were thinking about and what was really important in Victorian dressmaking. It's got some good basic skills you can build, and it's a great way to put a warm toe into using original documents. Another thing I'll recommend is just a basic sewing book, whether it's the 1970s Good Housekeeping or Better Homes and Gardens Guide to Sewing All the Things You Want. I have the Burtis Style Sewing Handbook and the Book of Garment Making Knowledge. They're great references for when you need to know how to do something like add a seam you've never done before. Finally, I've also added the Dress Detective. This one's less about sewing and more about reading a historical dress. It's really interesting if you would like some ideas on an approach to looking at extant garments and what's important to notice. However, keep in mind that this is one approach. It is not the be-all end-all for how to read a historic garment. So I debated whether or not to put the Janet Arnold books on here. If you've been in the historical costuming world for long, I'm sure you've heard of Patterns of Fashion, 1 through 5. They may be a good item to put on your holiday list, but I want to add a caveat here. They are not beginner books. They are for sewists who already know how to scale and size and make historical costumes. I have 3 of them and I still find them terrifying. So it's totally great to get them for inspiration or to intend to use in the future or to learn how to use. But don't look at those books, find that they're above your skill level, and decide that you can't do this or you're not a history bounder or historical costumer. They're advanced books. You'll get there. Nobody starts there. My next item is a tailor's ham. I would also add a sleeve board with this, but I don't have one, so I can't show you what they look like. These are things that are fairly low cost, but make a huge difference in terms of finished quality and ease of making your garment. A tailor's ham is for curved seams, so for something like a bust seam or a shoulder seam, you can place it over the curve and press it, and it makes a huge difference. You can also make your own. It's a great first hand sewing project, but I spent $15 on mine and have never looked back. Vintage clothes. I did want to give a couple ideas for people who aren't sewing, but since I'm largely trying to create my own wardrobe here, I haven't done much by way of vintage shopping, and I don't have a ton to say about ready-made clothes. However, if making your own wardrobe is not your aspiration, that's totally fine. I recommend Etsy and Poshmark. They both often have affordable vintage or thrift finds, and I do use them for some things. For example, I found this blouse by putting Victorian-inspired blouse into Poshmark search feature. Things do tend to go quickly, so if you find something that you want or that would make a great gift, definitely don't sleep on it. Another thing that's really great to have on your Christmas list is a hand sewing kit. I mentioned the needles above, but a full hand sewing kit is great, especially if you travel. Even if you just travel from the sewing machine to the couch to do your hand sewing. I have this kit here that I made a couple years ago. It's nothing spectacular, but it's really useful. It has a place to store my needles, a pin cushion, a place to store my scissors when they don't fall out because I'm holding them this way, and a pouch for miscellaneous things I may need. I also recommend a needle case. This is how I keep my nice needles from maybe the older ones. A miniature seam ripper. You never know when you're going to need to rip a seam. And a thimble. I really love leather thimbles and didn't use one before I discovered Bernadette's video. This is another good place to put a little pair of scissors. Most of the gifts I've mentioned have been fairly small, lower on the price range gifts. If you're looking for something bigger or something that you think might be a blow them away gift, I recommend American Duchess shoes. History bounding wardrobes need shoes, and most of us can't make those ourselves. I would love to get to show you mine and talk about how great they are, but they're still shipping and I can't wait. So while I am anxiously awaiting my Londoners, I will tell you that all I have heard is rave reviews about them. If American Duchess is less your style and you want a more general history bounding shoe, I also really suggest just getting a pair of classic black boots, something with a little bit more of a pointed toe. This will look like the shoes from a bunch of different eras. They're fairly timeless, and it'll go with any outfit. I have size tiny feet, and so all of my shoes I've managed to find from thrift stores or secondhand shops. Again, this is a place where eBay or Poshmark or maybe even Etsy would be good. I'm not going to get into the leather or vegan leather debate here. All I will say is that I don't buy new vegan leather, plastic, or polyurethane shoes. However, if I do see a great pair of vegan leather shoes secondhand, I don't mind getting those. They're already a thing that exists, and there's no reason for me to buy a new thing when I can buy a thing that has already been created and is out in the world. For my final item on our history bounding gift list, let there be light. I don't know about where you are, but where I am in the DC area, it starts getting dark about 3:30 p.m., which makes my evening sewing sessions much less enjoyable. Sewing is often detail-oriented and fiddly work, especially if you're getting into the hand sewing details or trying to finish up a garment. And what you want most for that is light. Something with a full spectrum light is also helpful for color matching, since that's the closest you'll get to outside light indoors. I've actually replaced all the light bulbs in the studio with full spectrum bulbs for that reason. If you're looking to give someone the gift of light, I recommend something like a knot lamp. This is a great one because I can move it around the house if I'm sewing somewhere that isn't my usual place. Or full spectrum light bulbs like I've done in here. This will improve the visibility in the area without requiring you to buy something like a new lamp. So that's the end of our 10 lists for Christmas, but I also promised a couple gift cards in case what you have in your life is a harder to shop for history bounder. I generally don't recommend buying your history bounder fabric, unless they have sent you a listing saying this is the greatest fabric I've ever seen, I have to have it, in which case you should really just stop what you're doing and go buy it now. Why are you even here? However, trying to pick out fabric for someone else can be a challenge, especially when it comes to garment making, because most kinds of garments require a specific fabric or a type of weave, or there's a color they've envisioned it in. This is where gift cards are great. A couple of good fabric stores I like gift cards from are Burnley and Trowbridge. They don't just make stockings, they have lots of great and beautiful historical reproduction fabrics, and Mood Fabrics. They're great for variety. If you need something that's maybe not quite a historical reproduction, or are looking for a broader variety of colors or textures or weaves or whatever, they can be a really great place to go. Fabric.com is also a good one. They tend to have a little bit of everything. For trims, history bounding items, jewelry, other little pieces you may want, Etsy's a great place to go. That's where I got my needle case. It's where I buy a lot of my ribbons and laces. I love going on and looking at the trims on Etsy. And sometimes you can even find interesting and hard to source fabrics on there. And Etsy does give gift cards. My final plug for gift cards or a place to go shopping is your local fabric store, especially if you have a fabric shop that sells garment fabric. I love supporting local fabric shops. Most of the time, they're really passionate people who sew themselves and are really excited to share their knowledge with you. So this is a great place to go. And it's even a great place to go, hey, I have someone who sews, what do I buy them? They'll be more than happy to help you out. So if you can support your local fabric shop, this is a great opportunity to do it. I hope this list has been helpful, either for assembling your own holiday shopping list or for buying for your loved ones. But tell me, what's on your holiday wish list? What history bounding or sewing pieces are you looking at that you just have to have? I haven't quite finished making my list yet and would love to have things to add. And with that, I wish you the happiest of holidays and warmest of New Year's. I remain, as ever, your faithful servant and 21st century Victorian, Frances Worthington.